Here we're looking at all sorts of umbrellas, and I think that umbrellas are one of the most underrated of modifiers that exists. One of the reasons is they're super cheap and they can produce really nice light if you know how to use them. They come in all different shapes and different sizes and different materials. And so I'm going to take a moment to explain what you're looking at when you're choosing an umbrella and how you can use that to shape your light. All right, so the most basic umbrellas, the ones that you usually get when you're first starting off, is going to be a small silver or white umbrella. And so it'll look something kind of like this, okay? Now, what's really nice is that these can be super inexpensive, extremely portable, but the downside is that they throw light everywhere. Because if you look at it, they're kind of like a shallow pan. If you remember the examples where I've talked about throwing buckets of water, this is throwing a pan of water. The light will go everywhere. So you have very minimal control over the spill of light. You can feather the light a little bit, but it's going to be difficult. And the other downside of these smaller umbrellas is that the smaller the light source is relative to the subject, the harder the light. In short, the light goes everywhere and it's smaller, so it's not as soft. So these particular umbrellas you have to use with care. If you want them to look good, it needs to be an instance where you don't care if the light spills. You don't mind if it hits the background, or you're not trying to control the light. And then you've got to bring the light in super close. And if you bring it in really close, well, now relative to the size of my face, it's actually quite large and quite soft. So you can make even the cheap small umbrellas look good. It will, however, be much more difficult if you tried to use these to, say, light a group of people. And that's the problem that I see a lot of beginners have, is that they'll take a small umbrella like this, maybe two of them, place them on either side of a group, let the light spread everywhere. Well, sure, the light will reach everywhere, but it's small, and so far away to light everybody, it's not soft. There are other and better solutions if you're trying to light a group of people. So to begin with, the most basic of umbrellas would either be white or silver. Now, the silver, as you can see, the silver texture behind me, is going to give you a little bit more specular light. So that means you'll see a little bit more texture, the highlights will be a little bit brighter, more texture in the skin, and the light will throw a little bit further. It bounces a little bit more than a white umbrella. So between the two of these, usually, if I don't have anything to modify the umbrella, I'd often pick white if it's just the umbrella and I've got to bring it nice and close. But sometimes I want a little more texture, then maybe the silver one's the right one. All right, so these are the basic umbrellas, but there are some different shapes of umbrellas as well. And so as you can see here, this is the very, very narrow pan of water that throws light everywhere. But they also make something called deep umbrellas. And so those umbrellas, as their name obviously says, are a little bit deeper. So let's take a look at one of those. A little bit deeper, okay? And so what the deeper umbrella does is it allows you to control where the light hits just a little bit more. It's going to make it easier for me to feather the light off the background. So if I want to turn it so it doesn't hit the background, for example, I can do that easier with a deep umbrella. And it also has a little bit faster fall off of light, which sometimes adds a little bit more drama to your shot. Typically, if I have the choice between a regular umbrella and a deep umbrella, I go for the deep umbrella. It's just going to give me a little bit more control over where my light falls. Now, we've talked about our regular umbrellas and the silver versus white, and you've got our deep umbrellas. But how about one other version? Would be something called a shoot-through umbrella, like I have here. And so in this instance, all of these we've talked about so far is that the light bounces into the umbrella and back on the subject. But in this instance, the light actually shoots through the umbrella and onto the subject. So basically, in this case, the front of the umbrella here is pointed at the subject's face. Whereas with most umbrellas, this would be pointed at the subject's face. So with a shoot-through umbrella, what happens is it's acting kind of like a softbox. The light hits this see-through or this translucent material. It spreads out so it becomes the size of this umbrella, and it softens the light. And so it'll look kind of like a softbox, but with less control. because again, this light is just gonna kick everywhere. Now, if you are using an umbrella with diffusion, you wanna make sure that you're actually filling the umbrella. So if you take a look at the umbrellas in the back, you can see that the light is placed, the strobes are placed further back near the end of the umbrella shaft. The reason is if they're really, really close, it's the bucket of water example, the light has no time to spread out, and so it only fills the center of the shoot-through umbrella or of the bounce umbrella. And that means that the light's not using the entire space. It's not having enough of this diffusion to actually be soft. We want it to fill the umbrella because the larger the light source is compared to the size of the subject, the softer the light. So I can pull the light back, fill the umbrella, bring the umbrella close and its diffusion material, so that'll make it nice and soft. There's a really nice shoot-through umbrella that Westcott makes. I think it's about 7 feet, and it's huge. And so what it does is it gives you super, super soft light. It's acting like a softbox, but it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier to set up, and it gives you very soft light. Now, there are modifications of these. There's something called Brawley boxes. And so what they actually do is it's a shoot-through umbrella, but then it's blacked out on this side, so it gives you a little bit more control over the light like you would get from a softbox. So again, knowing what diffusion does, or bounce does, or silver does, like knowing how all these things work, allow you to look at a modifier, have never shot it before, and have an idea of what it does. So if you see a Brawley box, it's a cross between a softbox and an umbrella, so it makes sense. And it's easy to set up. So far, talked about shoot through, white, silver, deep. And there's one more thing we should talk about, which would be something I use all the time, which is diffusion material. So diffusion material in this case can fit on the front of your umbrella. And what it does is it softens the light even more. Pretty much whenever I am shooting with umbrellas, I use a sock. And the reason I do this is most of the time I'm shooting with umbrellas, I'm going for really soft light. Now, one way that you could get soft light is to use a giant softbox, but they are a pain to set up. But giant umbrellas are actually really easy to set up. But to make them even softer, I then add diffusion. So I'm kind of deciding what I want. I want soft light, but I don't want the hassle, so I go with the umbrella, but it's not as soft as the softbox, so the diffusion makes it even softer. These are the considerations you're making. And an umbrella throws light everywhere. I want a little more control over my light, so I go with the deep umbrella instead of the normal umbrella because it brings it closer to the softbox, but it's cheaper than the softbox and easier to set up. So let me put this on and just show you what it looks like. All right. So I'm actually going to put the diffusion on top of the umbrella here, so it surrounds it, and then open it up. And I've got something that is soft like a softbox, but also easy to set up like an umbrella. And it's a little bit deeper, so it gives me more control. If I bring it in nice and close, that'll give me really soft light. So when would you want to use an umbrella? I think an umbrella is going to be a really great option for people that need something portable and easy to set up, for sure. And also if you're trying to save a little bit of money, usually umbrellas are less expensive than their softbox counterparts, especially if you're going for big sizes. So I recommend umbrellas if you are in maybe in a smaller space or something portable. But of course, if it's small, you bring it in nice and close. I also think umbrellas are fantastic for lighting large groups. When you light large groups, I recommend you go for the large or extra large umbrella with diffusion. It allows you to have the light a little bit further away from the group, which allows the light to spread out. But usually what happens is when you pull the light further away, the further it is, the smaller it is, which makes it hard light, except if you've got a nice big umbrella. Because then even compared to the size of the subject several feet back, it's still going to be really, really soft. And so that's a consideration I would have when I'm shooting groups. Probably what I use most often is going to be a large or extra large umbrella. Silver or white on the inside doesn't really matter because I almost always add diffusion to it. And I aim somewhere around the 60-ish inch mark when I'm talking about large umbrellas. In fact, I feel like it's my ability to take a window on location with me wherever I go or create window light in the studio. So to summarize all this, when you're choosing your umbrella, first of all, consider size, Smaller will be portable, but bigger is going to give you softer light. Then consider also your texture, your material. White is going to be softer. Silver gives you a little bit more texture, more specularity, and it throws the light further. A shoot-through umbrella gives you super, super soft light, so you may also want that. And then the next thing is the depth of your umbrella. If you can go deeper, it gives you a little bit more control. So my solution is usually bigger with diffusion.